Magandang umaga at welcome sa ating Strategic People Management Program. Ito po yung unang bahagi ng ating programa at yung ating learning sessions. So, before we begin, let me just go over the program objectives. If you can remember, ito yung mga objectives na na-discuss natin in previous meetings. First, we would like to enable our HRD officers and staff to develop the competencies necessary to perform people management functions excellently and to accomplish our institutional outcomes. So dito sa programang ito, gusto nating ma-equip yung kakayanan ng ating mga HR officers and staff para magawa yung trabaho ng HR ng mahusay at ng may contribution sa kabuuan ng goals ng ating institution. Pangalawang objective natin ay ma-mainstream ang strategic people management practice sa mga St. Camillus healthcare institutions natin. Pagka sinabi natin ma-mainstream, ito yung magamit natin at ma-incorporate at ma-practice continuously ang strategic people management. Then pangatlo, gusto nating makabuo ng isang peer learning group kung saan pwede tayong magbahagi kung ano yung mga naging karanasan natin sa pag-iimplementa ng strategic people management. Ito rin ay ipagkakataon natin para magbahagi kung ano yung mga karanasan at yung mga practices natin sa HR, nang sa gayon, pwede nating magamit yung mga successful practices na yan across the different institutions. Now, bakit natin gustong gawin itong mga objectives na ito? Meron tayong tinatawag na desired outcomes. At ito yung outcomes na gustong makita ng programa natin sa HR. At ito yung una, magkaroon tayo ng people management system na nakakapag-hire, train, at develop ng mga tao na nagpo-produce ng quality results. So gusto natin yung sistema natin ay tumutulong sa mga tao natin na mag-perform ng mabuti at maibigay ng tama at ng may kalidad ang kanilang serbisyo. Yung pangalawang outcome, nais natin na magkaroon ng isang mahusay na mga institusyon, no? High-performing Camillus institutions that contribute to the fulfillment of our vision and mission. Kaya ito ay isang strategic program para sa HR. Gusto nating iangkla o iugnay yung ating ginagawa para ito ay mag-contribute doon sa vision and mission natin. And pangatlo, gusto natin magkaroon ng kakayanan ang ating mga institusyon na mag-implementa ng mga HR programs that are strategic in nature. Ibig sabihin, ginagawa natin itong mga programang ito nang may kaugnayan doon sa stratehiya ng ating institusyon. So ito yung tatlong hangarin ng ating programa sa mga susunod na buwan na ito. Now for this course, I call it a course because we're basically learning how to do it. And not just learning how to do it, learning how to incorporate this in our institutions. So we have several topics to discuss during this online course. And if you can read the slides, no, naka-outline dyan. First, we will be discussing about the different models for managing human resources. Then next, we will be talking about how we anchor HR to our business strategy. Then third, we'll be discussing organizational design, and then job design, and then competency model. Then we go to recruitment, performance management, training and development, and then culture building. Now, just to go over again, dun sa ating napag-usapan in the previous meeting, this will be a process. No? So, hindi lang ito lecture na makapakikinggan natin over YouTube. Pero this is going to be a process wherein we need to participate and be involved. Okay? In order for us to optimize the learnings that we will gain from this program. Now, first, there is yung conceptual inputs. So, conceptual inputs are shared through recorded lectures that can be viewed through YouTube. So, itong mga lectures natin dito, yung talk na binibigay ko, and are basically being shared to you online para ma-access nyo sila on any time and anywhere you are. No? So, I'll be posting this or the series of lectures in a YouTube channel. Next, reading materials shall be uploaded in a shared folder that can be accessed through Google Drive. Now, I have sent you a link to this shared Google Drive or shared folder in Google Drive, wherein you can access materials that I'll be uploading with regards to the topics that we will be discussing. Now, these are reading materials. Now, some of them might be lengthy, and I encourage you to read them. Now, although it's not really required for you to read them, pero inaasahan ko rin na sana bigyan nyo rin ng panahon para makapagbasa. Okay? Most of the knowledge that we have gained in the field of human resources or in any other field for that matter are all written down in text, in books, in publications. No? So that it is very important for a learner like us, tayo na gustong matuto, hindi natin maihiwala yung kahalagahan ng pagbabasa at yung kahalagahan ng pagkuha ng kaalaman sa pamamagitan ng pagbabasa. So I hope that you would spend time in reading. You'll gain a lot more knowledge that I cannot discuss with you online or give through these talks. No? Mas marami kayong matutunan kung tayo ay nagbabasa. Okay? So I will be sharing with you some materials, pero they should not limit you in looking for or searching for other materials that you could use in upgrading or updating your human resource information or your human resource knowledge. Okay. Now, third, instructions for assignments are sent through email. So please check your email inboxes from time to time. Okay. Participants complete the assignments before the live learning session. So I have sent you a schedule for live learning sessions. During these live learning sessions, we will be discussing the assignments, and it will be more about sharing insights rather than lectures. So the lectures are all recorded, so we don't have to discuss that during the live learning sessions. We will also be discussing during the live learning sessions the experiences and the insights that you have gained from implementing or doing the assignments. So it's also important that aside from listening to the conceptual inputs, the recorded lectures, aside from reading the materials that had been shared, and aside from basically aside from all of both of those, no, you should also be doing the assignments that are provided to you, so that because it is in doing the assignments that you begin to gain some practical experience. And sometimes when we read something or listen to concepts, they might mean nothing. No? So it begins to have meaning when you begin applying these lessons in practice. No? So it is important that we apply what we have heard and read. And it's not just about applying, it's also about reflecting on what are the insights that you have gained. No? So hindi lang tayo puro gawa. No? Minsan, kailangan din nating tumigil, tingnan yung ginawa natin, at tingnan natin kung paano natin ito ginawa, ano yung mga natutunan natin doon, at ibahagi natin sa isa't isa. Parang sa gayon, yung kaalaman ay umuugat o lumalalim sa atin. No? Next, all assignments are uploaded in a Google Drive. So I'll be uploading the instructions and the some materials for the assignments to our Google Drive folder. So participants share their HR practices and insights on the work assignments during the peer learning sessions. And then class dialogue on the applicability of practices and agree on standards. What I mean by this is that we, all of the HR officers of the different Camillus institutions, we need to talk about these practices and agree on what can we make common across our institutions. And not just common, but also set the standards of quality for that particular HR practice. So that we begin to make our practices uniform across the different Camillus institutions. So this is going to be the process that we are going to observe over the next few weeks, where we will run our peer learning program. Okay, so now we go to the first module about models for managing human resources. So when we talk about HRM or human resource management, what comes into your mind? Ano yung pumapasok sa isipan ninyo kapag ka narinig nyo ang HRM? Minsan nagtanong ako sa isang manager, ano ba ang, pagka narinig mo ang HR, ano ba yung HR sa'yo? Kadalasan, yung naririnig kong sagot, yung HR, tagagawa ng payroll, taga-compute o taga-bantay ng attendance, taga-compute ng mga benefits at leave credits. So, yung idea kadalasan ng HR ay administrative yung trabaho, meaning personnelling ang trabaho, meaning yun, yung mga HR needs ng employees, ng pag-apply ng leave, pag-apply ng loan sa SSS, etc. So these are commonly perceived functions ng HR. Okay. Then there are times that there are some managers who think HR is somehow some sort of a boss in the institution, wherein we are responsible in supervising everyone in the institution. Okay, I think it's also a wrong concept for HR, or perhaps not the right concept for HR. Okay, siguro para mas ma-appreciate natin yung ano ba yung HRM or what is human resource management, by looking at how HR evolved over time. Okay? Yung alam nating HR ngayon, hindi ito yung practice kung nung umpisa. Okay? Nag-evolve siya. Ibig sabihin, over time, nagbago yung practice ng human resource management. And is basically influenced by the developments also in the industry. So habang nagbabago yung work environment at yung mga industriya, sumasabay dito yung pagbabago ng human resource management. So para lang mabigyan kayo ng idea yung development na yan, no? So for example, nung before the war, no, pre-war era, So yung mga 1800s and early 1900s, no? Ito yung time wherein nag-uumpisa nang magkaroon ng mga pabrika o pagawaan. And dito sa mga pabrika na ito at pagawaan na ito, syempre mangangailangan tayo ng mga tao na tagagawa. Taga-assemble, tagagawa ng mga materyales, etc. So dito, yung HR, yung Human Resource Management dito, ng panahon na yon, ay more about welfare o yung pagtingin doon sa kapakanan ng mga trabahador. So dito, sila yung tagatawag siguro ng doktor, tagabigay ng first aid kapag ka merong nasugatan doon sa gawaan, kapag ka may empleyadong nagkasakit. And then, ang HR din is more about distributing the wages for the workers. So, at the end of the day, they get paid. Then the HR work basically revolves around that function. Okay. Now came the 1930s to the 1950s. This is basically during the war and after the war, the World War II in particular. Nagkaroon ng paglago yung mga industriya, lalo na after the war, no? So nagkaroon ng mas maraming pabrika, nagkaroon ng mas maraming pangangailangan sa manggagawa. So dito, habang lumalaki yung mga industriya at dumadami yung mga iba pang mga negosyo, then came the need for the workers to organize themselves, no? Kasi of course during that time wala pang mga batas, and tendency ng mga owners or those who run the factories is to abuse the workers. So nangyari, the workers began establishing their trade unions or groups or gangs, no? So kung saan sila nagkaisa o nagkakasama-sama. So yung role ng HR ng panahon na yan, no, it's more about negotiating with the trade unions, negotiating the collective bargaining agreements with the workers. Okay. And then at that time also there is part of it is monitoring and adherence to particular regulations, no? So ito yung panahon na yan, no, between the 1930s, 1950s, and all throughout the 1980s, no? So ito yung panahon wherein industries experience yung growth, no? Nagkaroon ng paglaki at paglaganap ng mga industriya because of course, after the war, peacetime, everybody was now recovering from the crisis that had happened. Okay, so yung role din natin nagbago. Then came the 1990s, no? Ito na yung pagpasok ng knowledge age, no? Kung saan nag-umpisa na yung nagkaroon na ng mga computers, nagkaroon na ng mga internet, okay? Pero it was still a very young stage yung technology natin, no? So nag-improve din yung telecommunications, no? And during this time, nagkaroon na rin ng ibang mga types of work, mostly office work ang nalagdag, no? So we needed clerks, we needed supervisors, we needed managers, no? So in this period, 1990s and in the turn of the century, turn of the millennia, nagkaroon ng need for different types of workers, no? Yung tinatawag nating knowledge workers. And in this point, HR role now became an administrator, no? So naging focus natin dito, how to improve work efficiency, how to make people work more effectively. Okay, and dito rin, because of a regulation, because of laws, no, we need to also check our compliance with laws and compliance with standards. So dito na rin nauso yung mga ISOs, yung mga quality management. So all of these things had to be incorporated dito sa work natin sa HR. Then came 2000 and onwards. So ngayon, makikita natin yung bilis ng advancement in technology, bilis ng advancement in our information and communications, no? And of course, nandiyon na rin yung bilis ng travel, no? So you could go anywhere, anytime. If you don't have to take several days just to get somewhere. So yung mundo, no, parang lumiit dahil mabilis yung takbo at madali na yung yung movement, yung mobility ng mga tao. And there was also the globalization of businesses. So we have businesses here from other countries. We can work in other countries as well. So yung role ngayon ng HR naging medyo mas komplikado because nadagdagan na. We have to deal with the globalization. We have to learn how to optimize technology. And businesses right now, some businesses, of course, you have, for example, the BPO. Andun yung principal o yung main company ay nasa ibang bansa. Then most of the workers are located elsewhere, no, sa ibang bansa din. And yung tinatawag natin process outsourcing, may mga proseso sa organization na hindi na kailangan kumuha tayo ng full-time na tao. Pwede na nating kunin sa ibang kumpanya na sila na yung magbibigay. So there's these shared services that can now be offered. So our role now as HR, we need to become more strategic, no? Meaning, how can we use all of these opportunities so that we can help our business, help our organization to move further, to move forward. Okay, so ito yung mga changes sa HR practice over time, and you will notice that it had evolved while the businesses and while the industries are also evolving. Okay.
So just to sum this up, no, if you're going to look at the slide, okay, so yung model ng HR, whether it's personnel management, human resource management, human capital management, ay nagbabago yan over time, okay? O yung view natin ng human resource ay nagbabago over time. And of course, if we view human resource from a personal perspective, ito yung klaseng services na ino-offer natin, okay? So if we view personnel management from a personnel management perspective, we look at our human resources as a pair of hands, mga taga-operate ng machine, mga taga-assemble. Okay? So dito, hinahanap natin kung sino yung mga pinakamura sa workforce, sa labor, at sino yung mga pinaka-efficiente. Okay? Sa ganitong view, yung manager taga-utos at yung mga manggagawak taga-sunod. Okay? So dito, ang role natin as HR, mag-recruit, maghanap ng mga kwalipikadong tao para dito sa trabaho na to, mag-manage ng kanilang salaries, mag-check ang attendance, and coordinate and work with them through their labor unions. No? So ito yung trabaho natin sa personnelling. However, if our model of HR is more about human resource management, okay, our view, pagka ng human resource management, our view of HR dito, we view our human resources as problem solvers. They are resources in the organization that bring in value to the organization. Okay, we see people, or we need people who would become effective at attaining our objectives. We want workers who think. We want workers who can decide. Okay. So dito, ang services natin dito, we provide services like training, team building, okay, performance management, management, MBO is management by objectives. We measure their performance in terms of the accomplishment of objectives. And we facilitate that through our HR work. But then there is this model of HR management we call human capital management, wherein we consider people as not as resources, but as capital. Meaning, yung mga taong pinapasok natin dito, they have something to contribute to our organization. Okay? What do we mean by capital, by the way? When we say capital, no, in a business perspective, no, kapag sinabi mong kapital, ako, may-ari ako, nagpasok ako ng kapital para magamit ang aking negosyo doon sa kanya purpose. At yung kapital ko, expected ko din yan, meron din akong matatanggap pabalik. Okay? So ako ay, kumaga parang, ako yung nagmamay-ari nung organisasyon, no? Dahil nagpasok ako ng kapital. Hindi nalalayo dun yung konsepto ng pag sinabi natin about human capital management. Pagka sinabi natin yung human capital management, ang konsepto natin ng HR yan, yung mga tao na pumapasok sa organisasyon, hindi man sila nagko-contribute ng pera as capital, pero nagko-contribute sila ng ibang bagay na may value dun sa organisasyon. They bring in talent, they bring in their network, okay? They bring in certain value to the organization. Okay, example ko dyan. For example, kailangan natin dito ng one of the priorities of the organization is expanding our market. Okay. Kung yan yung priority ng organization, to expand the market and to increase our market share, we need to bring in people who have that capability to help us expand that market share or expand the market presence of our organization. Okay? So these people, anong klaseng mga tao kailangan natin ipasok? People who have networks, yung may mga kakilala. Okay? So yung taong yan, ang pinapasok niya sa organization, hindi pera, kundi yung mga kakilala niya. Okay? So kung parte siya ng organisasyon na ito, kasama natin siya doon, then we will be able to tap yung mga kakilala niya. Okay? So yan yung ibig natin sabihin ng human capital management. We bring the HR, the the people in the organization, bring in talent, bring in their networks, bring in their contacts. They bring in value to the organization. They add value to the organization. Okay? And our role now here is we need to become more strategic in terms of who are we going to partner with, who are the people that we're going to bring in, and what kind of culture are we going to build so that these people would stay. Okay, and where will we find these people? So yan yung mga natin, magiging panibagong role natin kung ang modelo natin is yung human capital management. Okay. I'll give a concrete example. For example, one person may, coming from another industry or another organization, coming into our organization, brings in with her yung mga kakilala niya. Okay. So, yung mga kakilala na yan will contribute to the success of our organization. One recent example is this. When we brought in Miss Millet, she came from the medical city. Okay, from her work in the medical city, of course, she had already a lot of contacts there. Okay, so when we brought her in to our organization, we likewise got access to those network of contacts that she has. No? And one of those network of contacts were the ones who were able to bring in the Ateneo group, no? Wherein we are now managing the the health and wellness center or the infirmary of the Ateneo Jesuits. So that would have been possible if we did not have any connection with them. So yung tao na idala natin sa loob natin, sa organization natin, siya yung nagdala nun. Okay? Para sa atin. Okay? So, ganun yung konsepto niya. No? So, we as HR, we need to uh, keep in mind, ano ba yung kailangan natin? Well, kailangan natin, what we need is to expand our market. So, who would be the people who would help us expand that market? And if we bring them in, what value do they add to our organization? Okay? So, yun yung mga iba't ibang modelo ng trabaho o yung pagmamanage natin ng human resources.
Now, Dave Ulrich suggests that there are 4 functions for managing human resources. The first is being a strategic partner. Second, as a change agent. Third, as administrative expert. And fourth, as employee champion. When we say administrative expert, we are people the HR department produces administrative policies, is in charge of process and procedures, and we have to enhance organizational efficiency. When we talk about employee champion, HR is the one motivating people and increasing their productivity in the organization. When we talk about being a strategic partner, HR links human resource management strategy to the organizational vision, mission, and strategies. And when we talk about being a change agent, organization transformation towards congruence with the organizational vision and mission and strategies. Let us discuss this more thoroughly. As change agent, perhaps it would be better if I use an example. No, we'll make use of the pandemic as an example. No? Because of the pandemic, everything got accelerated. No, so biglang napabilis lahat o nabago lahat din yung mga ginagawa ng mga kumpanya. And because of these rather abrupt changes that had happened to us, so nandun yung change, no? So we need to become change managers, no? So yung role natin as HR, naging change managers tayo. Kailangan nating i-adapt yung buong organization and its people to this changing environment. Okay? And we need to guide yung mga tao towards this new normal that we are experiencing. No? So, yung role natin dito, tayo yung nagpa-facilitate nung pagbabago. Okay? Dahil napipilitan tayong magbago. No? Because of the pandemic, marami tayong mga practices na nabago. Kung dati pwede tayong pumasok ng 8 to 5, ngayon, biglang nabago yon, no? So ngayon, biglang nagkaroon na tayo ng mga flexible work arrangements. Nagkaroon ng mga different schedules and shifting. Nagkaroon ng scheduling and alternate work arrangements. Nagkaroon ng mga work from home arrangements. So yung mga pagbabago niyan ay hindi ito yung mga nakasanayan ng mga manggagawa. So, ang role natin bilang HR is tulungan sila na mag-adjust dito sa mga pagbabagong ito. Okay? So, for example, like work from home arrangements. This is particularly true for the head office, no? Dito sa central office, wherein we have workers who no longer go to the office but are actually working from home. So when an employee is asked to work from home, no, malaking pagbabago din yon. So we need to help them adjust to these changes. Okay. Also, some managers are also not comfortable before with working from home. Pero right now, it had become an acceptable mode na ngayon, no? Na pwede pala yung mga workers natin makapagtrabaho sa kanilang tahanan o sa kanilang bahay. Hindi nila kailangan pumasok dito sa opisina. So paano natin babantayan yung mga yan? Paano natin masisiguradong nagtatrabaho sila? Okay? So there are now these changes that had happened wherein HR has to come up with the new policies, new rules, new guidelines on how to perform work, particularly for those working from home. Paano ba sila magre-report? Wala naman silang attendance card. Paano natin malaman kung nag-work na sila from 8 to 5, no? May mga pagbabago din kasi na hindi na applicable yung nakagisnan natin doon sa mga bagong pamamaraan na yan. No? So kailangan mo ring baguhin yung mga yan. And these changes sometimes are difficult to grasp, no, or to accept immediately. So you also need to guide people on what to do and how to do it until such time na makasanayan na nila. Okay? So doon, yung role natin as HR is to guide them. Okay? Pero ang problema din, no, kasi nung pandemic, tayo mismo sa HR ay nangangapa. No? Nangapa tayo, hindi natin alam yung gagawin. Tayo mismo ay nangailangan din ng adjustment dito sa mga biglaang pagbabago sa work situation or sa work environment. Okay. As employee advocate. Dito, pag sinabi natin employee advocate ang HR, yung isa sa role natin ay to see to think about the welfare and yung kapakanan ng mga manggagawa natin. And I'll use again the example ngayong pandemic, no? So ngayong pandemic, of course, andyan yung threat o yung risk na maaari tayo magkakasakit ng COVID. So dapat iisipin natin, no, tayo sa HR, isa sa mga isipin natin ano ang gagawin natin at ano yung maibibigay nating benepisyo sa mga empleyado natin kung sakaling sila ay magkasakit, kung sakaling sila ay matamaan ng COVID. O ano yung mga gagawin natin sa trabaho kung saan makapaggawa tayo ng paraan para maprotektahan natin yung mga manggagawa na magkasakit. So, dito we come up with new policies, with new procedures, with protocols that would address the risk that could possibly harm our employees because of the threat of COVID. Dito rin, inisip din natin kung ano kaya yung makakabuti o anong mga benepisyo yung pwede natin ibigay. Nang sa gayon, malesen din yung stress and yung takot ng mga employees pagdating sa pagkakasakit ng COVID. No? So, dito, HR becomes a person or a champion for the employees, no? Kung saan iniisip natin lagi yung kapakanan ng mga empleyado natin at gumagawa tayo ng mga pamamaraan at mga practices kung saan nasisiguro natin na yung kapakanan ng mga empleyado natin ay natutugunan o na bibigyan ng pansin. Now dito, as administrative expert, no, sigurado akong alam na natin ito. Okay? Because dito, ito yung halos ginagawa natin araw-araw. We focus on the process, yung mga operations. We think about yung mga procedures and policies wherein we will try to that would guide our employees in their work. Okay? Ngayon dito sa panahon ng COVID, panahon ng pandemic, we practice yung administrative expertise natin in crafting policies, okay, new policies to guide the entire institution on what to do during this time of pandemic. Okay? So dito, naging ano tayo bigla, naging mga epidemic experts tayo, naging mga infection control experts tayo. Okay? So bigla tayo nagbasa ng mga materials about how viruses are transmitted, how people get infected, and then nagkaroon na ng mga bagong issuances din yung mga regulatory agencies. So we had to read all of these things and then come up with new policies, guidelines, administrative rules, so that everybody will be guided properly during this time of pandemic. So doon natin ina-apply yung pagiging administrative expert natin. Then finally, HR is a strategic partner. Okay? So dito, hindi lang tayo taga-gawa ng policy, hindi lang tayo yung isip ng mga welfare ng mga members natin, ng mga employees natin. Pero dito, mas iniisip natin yung paano ba tayo makaka-contribute o makakatulong doon sa mission and objectives ng ating organization. Okay? So again, I'll use the pandemic as an example. Because of the pandemic, our institutions had suffered certain losses or certain conditions in the work environment that had affected the performance of the institutions. No? So in short, we hindi naging, well, this is true for any other industry or any other organization for that matter. Because of this pandemic, a lot of businesses had suffered losses. No? And we were not spared from that fact. No? Nagkaroon din tayo ng mga difficulties during the previous years. No? So now, the thrust o yung objective ng organizations natin is to be able to recover from this pandemic. So the goal is recovery, no? So what is the strategy of the organization to be able to help in the recovery? So hindi natin pwedeng ihiwalay yung kahalagahan ng HR management doon, no? So may malaking role na ginagampanan yung HR so that the institutions can be able to recover from the losses that had happened during the past years, during this pandemic. So ang ating role ngayon is to find out or to make recommendations to management what could be the best way to be able to help in the recovery of the organization. Now, of course, part of this is planning, facilitating yung planning process, but at the same time, helping identify ano ba yung mga strategies ng organization for recovery, and then coming up with a human resource plan that is anchored on that one. Okay, so I'll give an example. For example, in Pasig, SCMC Pasig, the strategy for recovery is to engage into to engage in a digital platform. No? So to be able to access new markets, we would like to implement a new strategy, which is to access people who are afraid of going to the hospital but still needing medical attention or healthcare services. So we are offering these online consultations so that those patients or those clients who are unable to go to the hospital can still access our services. So now the strategy is going online or using digital platforms. So kung ito yung strategy ng organization, ano yung role natin ngayon as HR? Of course, we need to review, are we capable of delivering that strategy in terms of our human resources, in terms of the structure of the organization, in terms of the capability of the people in the organization to deliver that service. Okay, so now if the strategy is to deliver services through a digital platform, the first thing that we would be looking at is ano ba yung kakayanan natin, no? Do we have the people to be able to implement that? Of course, if you have a digital platform, you need IT people, you need people who would be able to manage the online platforms, and then you need people to do marketing online or making it known to people. Okay, so itong mga ito wala to dati, no? So hindi sila present before dun sa institution. So HR will need to find those talents and then develop the competency of the organization to be able to deliver that service efficiently and effectively. Okay? So ngayon, may mga bagong talent na ngayon dun sa organization. We have IT persons. We have marketing persons. We now have yung mga online personnel who manage our social media. Okay, so these are new positions that came in because we have changed that strategy, or we have adopted a new strategy. And at the same time, since we have these new people, we have to look at how they perform, no? So how will they perform? Dati wala sila doon sa structure natin. Is there a system that would that incorporates this new way of doing business into our organization? The processes and the systems need to adapt to these new changes. And again, HR plays an important role there. No? So we attach everything to these new strategies that we are implementing. And at the same time, we make the necessary recommendations to management on how to make it more effective and efficient. Okay, so that would be our new role as HR practitioners in this type of situation. Okay, so those are the different roles that are played by an HR, but by an HR department or an HR officer. Okay, it may not be performed by one person. Okay, but it is performed by the department itself. Meaning, in a department, it could be different persons performing these functions. No? So one person is performing administrative, one person is working on the strategic, one person is working on the change management and motivation of employees, etc. No? So these are work divided into different persons, especially if it is a big organization. But for a small organization, it can actually be played by just one person, no? Depending on the size of the organization. But what is important to note is that whenever we talk about HR or HR management, these four functions are always present. Okay? Whether in a small organization or a big organization, these four functions are always present and should be performed by human resource managers.
Now, there are certain factors that affect our role in HR, okay? And these are the three common factors that affect our HR role, okay? First, there is globalization, okay? Well, globalization. The world is smaller now because everyone is linked together by the internet. Uh, we can go anywhere in the world. Travel has been shortened, etc. No? Organizations can now work at one area and then go into the next. Okay, so this phenomena, no, wherein wala na yung kanya-kanyang teritoryo. Okay, so we are also competing with other, not just members in the or organizations within our territories, but we're also competing with other things elsewhere in the world. No, for example, one of our major problems in our hospitals is the recruitment of nurses. Okay, and why do you think we have problems in the recruitment of nurses? It's because It's not because we have fewer nurses, no, but because most nurses would probably prefer to go abroad, to work abroad, no, because there are better benefits there for health workers. Some of our nurses would probably just gain experience from us and then later on leave. So there's also a problem of retention. Okay? And this problem or this situation is brought about by the globalization, meaning other countries, other hospitals, and other places can can get people from anywhere in the world to work for them. Okay? So these are the things that affect our work in human resource management. Then technology. Okay. So technology, advances in technology will eventually have, well, practically is affecting also our role or has influence in our role. Okay. Dati-dati, lahat ng trabaho can be done by humans. Ibig sabihin na, kunyari sa pabrika, kailangan mo ng mga tao para mag-assemble ng mga bagay, ng mga materialis na ito. Pero ngayon, nandiyan na yung mga makina, mga makabagong makina. Hindi mo na kailangan yung taong ito na dati kailangan mo dahil pinalitan na siya ng makina. Okay? Eh, lalo na ngayon, meron na tayong tinatawag ng mga artificial intelligence. Yung mga dating tagasagot ng telepono na tao, wala na. Ngayon, automatic na yung mga sumasagot. Okay? Hindi mo na kailangan ng additional na mga tao. Okay? So, we need to figure out now, ano yung mga trabaho na kailangan talaga natin pang gawin ng mga tao, ano yung mga trabaho na binabago na ngayon ng teknolohiya. Okay? Also, because of technology, people now are able to work elsewhere. Okay? Hindi na kailangan nandun mismo sa opisina. Pwede yung kausap ko ngayon nandun sa ibang lugar. Like this, for example, this training or this seminar or this talk that we're doing right now. A year ago, we would probably be here in the center, face to face, talking to each other, interacting with one another. But now, because of technology, we are able to deliver these kinds of talks and these trainings online, digitally, electronically. So you're there, I'm here, and we interact online. And that's brought about by technology. So how are we going to use this technology to our advantage as HR managers? And finally, one of the important factors that affect our role is what we call customer centricity. What does this mean? Customer centricity. People are now becoming more aware about their needs. No? So their expectations are also changing. Okay, so we need the business itself has to manage the changing expectations of customers, okay, and the changing realities of our customers. So the business itself has to be focused on what the needs of the customer is. So we need to be able to address these individual needs, you know, that they may differ from different customers. You know? So customer centricity also means that there is uniqueness in the different customers that we need to become aware of. Because business has to adapt to that so that we may be able to develop the manpower or the human resources that we would need to be able to address those changing behaviors and those changing preferences of our customers. Okay? So the focus here is the customer. The focus, the changing expectation and needs of our customers. Now, as I've been mentioning, there's this changing customer expectation and changing market environment that is affecting our role or HR as HR practitioners. What we mean by this is that as HR practitioners, hindi lang natin tinitingnan yung pangangailangan ng mga tao natin. Pero kailangan din natin i-anticipate yung mga pangangailangan natin sa tao base doon sa mga pagbabago na nangyayari sa ating environment at doon sa preferences ng ating mga customers. Okay? Let me just give you an example, okay, to explain this better. No? Because of the pandemic, people don't immediately go to the hospital, no, for checkups anymore. No? Hindi na nila gagawin yan ngayon. No? Kasi bakit? Natatakot sila. Natatakot na mahawa sa COVID. Natatakot na makahalubilo nila. May COVID na. Okay? So, ito yung isang problema natin. Actually, di ba? Isang dilemma natin. Yung mga tao ngayon natatakot pumunta sa ospital. Kaya yung mga maliliit na mga karamdaman, may konting sabihin natin, may konting pananakit lang yung katawan ko. Hindi ko na muna pupunta sa ospital. Sa bahay na lang muna, natitiis ko naman. Dito na lang tayo sa bahay magpagamot. Okay? Iyan ang malaking pagbabago sa merkado natin, no? Ngayong pandemya. Okay? And that's the reason why we have fewer outpatients. That is the reason why we have fewer admissions in our hospitals. People who will not admit themselves to the hospital. Okay? May kilala ako, may sakit siya that needs to be managed in the hospital. Pero she doesn't want to go there. So what does she do? She just stays at home and seeks help from her doctor. She hires a nurse. She asks the doctor online, and the nurse would just go to her place and administer the procedures that she needs to get. Okay, that's just one example. But if you look at it, that is the entire market. That's the new behavior of the people, no, for our market. People are doing things online. Okay, so there's now a change in the market environment. So therefore, we need also to adapt to the change. Okay, so the hospital, kung ayaw pumunta ng tao sa hospital, dapat ang strategy natin, puntahan natin yung tao kung nasaan sila. Okay? Kaya ba natin gawin yun? Yes, kaya natin gawin yun. Because of technology, we can use technology for teleconsult. Gusto mo magpakonsulta, pero hindi ka makapunta sa Camillus, tawag ka lang sa cellphone or access it through Facebook, may makakausap kang doktor. Okay, so through technology, kung ayaw mo puntang sa hospital, ako ang pupunta doon sa iyo. So ganun na yung bagong business model ngayon, no? And we need to become more efficient in doing that. We need to become more effective in doing that strategy of bringing healthcare to where the patients are. Okay? So if that is the strategy, what is our role as HR? Our role is, one, to find the right talents who would be able to perform that work effectively. Kung dati di natin kailangan ng IT person, kailangan natin ng IT person, we need to hire an IT person, okay, who has the right competencies to help us address this need, no, for our customers. Kung dati wala kang mga sales and marketing person sa hospital, ngayon hindi naman pupunta sa ospital yung mga tao. Paano nila malalaman? Paano natin makukuha ang mga kliyente? So ngayon, the more we will need people who can market, who can draw people to the services that we are offering online. Ngayon, we have an online platform. We have a digital platform. Kaya dati-dati wala naman tayo nagmamanage niyan. So ngayon, because of these changes, we need to find that talent who will be able to manage the change in the organization. Someone who answers the calls, someone who would redirect the calls, someone who would be able to figure out how to manage that. Okay. Now, to be more strategic, kailangan ba tayong gumawa niyan? Baka ngayon pwede na natin i-outsource yung mga yan. Okay? Baka mas makakatipid tayo kung meron lang grupo dito, sila yung nagmamanage ng digital platform. There is now this new technology here that is offering a digital platform for teleconsulting. There are groups of people here that can do marketing for us. They don't need to become our employees. We just need to hire them. We just need to partner with them. Okay, so these changes. So we need to figure out whether would this be a better option than this one. Our role now is to suggest to management. I think it's better to make use of shared services rather than getting our own people to do it. There are certain functions or there are certain business processes that can already be outsourced. So we can probably study that. Now that's going to be a role of a new role for HR. That's being more strategic. Okay. Again, that emanated or that came from the change in the market environment, the change in the customer behavior. And you will be able to make the right recommendations only if you understand what these changes in the customer behavior is. Okay? So as HR, you have to be up to date. You need to be aware of these changes. You need to talk to people. You need to talk to the marketing. You need to talk to the doctors. You need to talk to the nurses to figure out what would be the best recommendations that we need to make for accomplishing these objectives of the organization or for implementing the strategies of the organization. Okay. Now, again, these new roles of HR in the organization is what we call creating an agile culture. Okay, what does an agile culture mean? Okay, so an agile culture, according to Scott Graffis, culture is defined as a set of shared attitudes, values, and practices that characterize a group or organization. An organization has an agile culture when its environment is inclusive of attitudes, values, and practices, which enables it and its teams and individuals to manifest being adaptive, flexible, and responsive to complexity, uncertainty, and change. Okay? So, meaning, having an agile culture means that you have people in the organization who can readily adapt to change. Okay? And who can readily provide you with the value needed by the organization in order to achieve its objectives. Okay? So that's what being agile means in an organization. Okay? So you have to be able to adapt to change rather quickly because our external environment is changing very rapidly, especially now during this time of pandemic. And to develop an agile culture, we need to also develop an agile mindset. So what does that mean? So practitioners are just, let me just read this, okay? Practitioners are thus said to have an agile mindset when they are preoccupied and sometimes obsessed with innovating and delivering steadily more customer value with getting work done in small self-organized teams, and with collaborating together in an interactive network. Such organizations have been shown to have the capacity to adapt rapidly to a quick and shifting marketplace. So, meaning we design not just the organization, but we design the way people would be able to adapt to change in the organization. Okay, why do we need to do that? Because in this changing environment, we need to keep up with the changing values that the people, our customers have. Okay? Nagbabago na yung values, yung kung ano yung binavalue ng mga tao. Okay? For example, us in our industry, the hospital, in the care industry, in a hospital, they value a hospital that will be able to provide them the services even if they are not able to go there physically. Okay? They would now value cleanliness. They now value protection. Okay? Unlike before, no? Well, although they value that before, but not as much as now. Okay, and we need to realize, or we need to become aware of these changing values, and our people need to provide that value so that the customer will come to us. Okay? The customer will only come to us if we provide them the value that they're looking for. So if they're looking for a certain value, okay, we must be able to provide them that. And to provide them that, people need to adapt to this very rapidly changing environment. Okay? We need to have a capacity to work within this rapidly changing environment. So in contrast to a bureaucratic mindset, okay, what does the slide say? By contrast, managers in traditionally run organizations are often said to have a bureaucratic mindset when they are primarily preoccupied with making money for the company and its shareholders, and when they are organizing work according to rules, roles, criteria they determine, and when they are operating the organization as a top-down hierarchy with multiple layers and divisions. So dito parang, okay, utos de boss, gawin mo. Okay. In an agile mindset, the customer needs this. We need to adapt to it. We need to provide them that. And we need to work together to make that happen. Okay. And we need to say, our people would be able to tell that, oh, ito, boss, ito yung kailangan natin gawin. Kailangan natin i-offer. Okay. The ones that would survive this change in the market environment are the ones who can adapt to change rapidly. If we're slow to change, then we will be left behind. Okay. So, if these are the roles that we are playing, then what are the competencies that we need as an HR manager or as an HR practitioner? Okay, I've outlined several needed competencies here. Okay, because our ultimate goal is to produce results, and for results to happen, those results are achieved through the employee experience. If the employee experience is poor, then we get poor results. Okay. If the employee experience is rich, then we get better results. Okay. And for employees to have a rich experience in the organization, HR plays a very critical role to that. Okay. So we need to have these competencies to be able to create that employee experience. First, business acumen. Ngayon, ang HR, hindi lang HR dapat ang alam mo. Hindi lang yung labor code. Hindi lang yung SSS requirements o yung BIR or yung PhilHealth requirements. Hindi lang time card ang dapat alam mong i-compute. When we talk about business acumen, you know how the business runs, and you know how the business works. No, makakatulong dito, of course, if you have experience running your own business. However, not all of us have that experience. But you could still learn, no, about the business. Okay, how does it make money? How does it operate? What are the interrelated functions here? How does he relate with other organizations? What is the purpose? What are the objectives? Okay, what are the strategies? No? These are all part of knowing the business. Okay, so that the more that you understand the business, then the better you will be able to relate human resource needs with the business objectives. Part of our HR competencies is also what we call expertise or versatility, meaning, we need to play different roles. Okay, so we need to be versatile. Okay, we need to be able to perform all of these different roles, especially those 4 functions that I have mentioned earlier. Okay, like example ko, no? Ngayong pandemic na ito, di naman ako doktor. Pero because of the pandemic, I began reading these technical notes on transmission of diseases. You begin reading these updates coming from other doctors. No? You begin reading about infection control, etc. Okay. You learn about viruses, how they spread. Okay. You learn about vaccines, how they are used. Hindi ka naman doktor, pero kailangan mo malaman yun because you're working in a health environment, in a health facility. So you have to understand these things as a HR person. So you have to be very versatile because you have to create new policies and procedures that would eventually be governed by these certain body of knowledge. No? So you also need to have that ability for critical and strategic and creative thinking. No? Thinking skills. Kailangan importante yan. Hindi pwedeng hindi ka nag-iisip. Okay? Walang HR person na hindi nag-iisip. So, kailangan marunong kang gamitin ang iyong utak. Yeah? So, thinking skills are very important. Critical thinking, creative thinking, especially now. No? Creative thinking. No? We need to come up with new policies. So we need to come up with new ways of doing things. Then you have to be a little creative on how you're going to do that. Okay. Resiliency, agility, change management, effective communication. Yeah, important yan, effective communication. You need to communicate more constantly with people. We need to update them. You need to be transparent about everything that's happening so that they also understand. Stakeholder management. What does that mean? You're not just managing your department. You're not just managing your staff. You're also managing different people in the organization, helping influence them. Okay, and you're also managing stakeholders, no? Other people outside of your organization. Okay, even your bosses. We have to learn how to manage the bosses. No? In any organization, that has to be a skill as well. Okay, leadership, the ability to influence people, integrity is very important, and most importantly, the purpose of why we are doing things. We need to be mission driven. Why are we doing this? Why are we working here at St. Camillus? You need to understand that as well, and it's part of our competencies, no? So to focus on that mission. Okay? So we're now going to talk about the 8 R's of HR. Okay, so there are 8 R's. This recruiting, routing, retaining, resonating, reviewing, rewarding, retooling, and recycling. Okay, I got this eight R's from one of my previous gurus. No, so he in AIM. So he created this 8 R's. So it's basically this is the 8 HR cycle. So you notice it's a cycle. So we recruit, we route, we retain, we resonate, we reward, we tool, and recycle, part of our job and HR. Okay. So we begin by recruiting. So when we talk about recruiting, we acquire and bring in the or within the organization the right talent that we need. And we hire the right talents with the right competence and the right time. Okay. Notice that we use the word right, okay, and not the best. Okay. Hindi tayo naghahanap ng the best person. Ang hinahanap natin yung tamang tao. Okay. So, what do we mean by tamang tao? Yung tao na may yung nararapat na kakayanan para gawin yung trabaho ng mahusay. Okay? So, ito yung hinahanap natin sa ating organization. Another R that we're doing is routing. So, when we talk about routing, we're talking about moving people within the organization. Okay? So, sabihin natin, from this work, we'll move them to another work. From this position, we will move them to another position. Okay. So this is basically employee movement within the organization. It can be vertical, it can be horizontal, and it could be, it's basically moving them within the positions, within different jobs in the organization. Okay. So this we do routing so that we can increase the competence of our people, their versatility and flexibility, okay? And their ability to assume multiple roles in the organization. Now, in one thing that we need to also remember is in routing, this is also one way of developing new leaders in the organization in terms of succession. We prepare new leaders to perform higher roles in the organization. So part of in developing new leaders is to route them into different tasks or work in the organization. Dito yung pupasok ng cross-posting, developmental assignments, short and long-term assignments. When we talk about cross-posting, what we mean by that is that we ask this person to perform another post or another job in another position, so that he'll be able to learn what that other position is doing. Okay. Developmental assignments mean we assign a certain person to a certain task or assignment that he may not be doing before. No? Okay. It could be a project, it could be something difficult, no? So that we raise the ability of the person in preparation for higher tasks or higher functions. Okay. Retaining means being able to hold on to people in the company. Okay. So that's part of our task: retain them, keep them. Because losing people entails cost. So after hiring them and training them, etc., it's so important that we keep them so that they will be able to contribute to the organization. But if they leave earlier, then of course that would entail certain implications, certain costs. Okay. In resonating, what we mean by here is that we keep people in tune with the values of the organization, to reverberate with an organization that resonates with people, and their employees who resonate with their management are likely to have good congruence. So dito, what we're talking about resonating is that everybody has to have a shared goal, and everybody has to share that mission of that organization, of our organization. Okay, and they have to reflect that. They have to show that. They have to make other people feel that they are part of it. Okay, reviewing means performance. It's more about performance appraisal, performance evaluation, checking whether the employees have performed well or not, and what are the things that we need to do in order to help our employees to improve their performance. Okay. When we talk about rewarding, we're talking about compensating, investing, and recognizing our employees. It may not just be monetary, it can also be non-monetary. Okay, in terms of recognition, rewards, even a pat on the back is part of that. Okay. When we talk about retooling, we're talking about training, re-equipping people, upgrading their skills, their abilities, their knowledge. So this is more about training development, competency development. And then when we talk about recycling, we're talking about career pathing, career development. Where would the employee go? What path would he be trekking within our organization? Okay. So that's it. This is all about the basics of management, basics of human resource management. And we will be going through the details of each of these functions in the succeeding modules. Okay, thank you.